U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen all but admitted to the U.S. Congress this week that we're headed into a more multipolar reserve currency world. A future that will depend much less on our currently still dominant fiat US dollar reserve note and offshore euro dollars for global trade settlements. Coupled with already dwindling external reserve currency holdings of the fiat US dollar, and I'll show you more data proving that statement in just a few minutes. First, let us all have a listen to how Janet Yellen expressed where the fiat US dollar's global market share will continue trending to come.
Lapping sanctions on countries around the world and taking that into consideration and be more thoughtful as we may be creating a paranoia around the world where people are looking for other currencies to do transactions.
It is true that when we impose sanctions, countries that are afraid they can be the subject of those sanctions are motivated to look for other tools other than the dollar to engage in transactions. So
but even
that's
our
something
friends,
we have to accept. It is much more difficult to find other tools to make payments, other currencies, when we work jointly with
but we even
partners.
have our friends like France also looking for other currencies and pushing it.
You know, France and some of our allies were not happy when we pulled out of JCPOA and imposed sanctions, and but there, I would say there is virtually no meaningful workaround for most countries for using the dollar as a reserve currency.
Very well, and I understand earlier you made some statements about it being the most stable option with the rule of law and liquidity and all
Yes.
that. But isn't it the fact that the use of the dollar has diminished and gone down against competing currencies over the years?
There's been some increase in holdings of other reserve assets, but that's something to be expected in a growing world economy where there is a desire to diversify, but
so we should expect less use of the dollar, is what you're saying. We should anticipate.
We should expect over time gradually increased share of other assets in reserve holdings of countries. It's a natural desire to diversify, but the dollar is far and away the dominant reserve asset.
It's still a huge concern for us here in Congress. And just changing gears.
Well, changing gears is unlikely given past and current global macroeconomic trends. These two world international reserve charts, left and right, are provided by ongoing IMF data and Dan Kopescu's Twitter handle. On the left-hand side, we see how world central bank reserves or government savings were comprised at the end of the year 2000. And then on the right-hand side, we see how they were reported at the end of last year, 2022. Even with the spot gold price having risen over six-fold in this 22-year time span, and central banks massively net buying gold bullion since the 2008 global financial crisis onwards to now, official gold reserve holdings have still fallen in comparison to a myriad ramp in fiat currency debt value notes and bonds saved and held by the world's collective government central banks. From IMF fiat-denominated SDRs, or special drawing rights, to other competing fiat currencies like the fiat Chinese yuan, the world's fiat currency holdings are likely to only get more diversified and localized based on direct trade settlements without fiat US dollars in between as intermediary, and thus secularly bearish for future fiat Federal Reserve note demand. As the Bank for International Settlements begins implementing its coming direct mCBDC and CBDC trading settlement platforms across the world. Now imagine how this chart's going to look if we go out a decade or two more after the spot price of gold has ramped and we find ourselves in a fully implemented mCBDC and CBDC trading world. One that will likely prove all-time secularly bearish for fiat US dollar demand globally. Now, if we in the USA don't change the debt and deficit financing path that we are currently on, and it's been obvious for decades running that we have a captured leadership that's unwilling and or unable to do so, well, I argue the quickening of this coming technological payment settlement change that the BIS is actively working on is likely going to prove to be not all that slow in its coming effects. The Fiat Federal Reserve knows the damning fundamentals at hand, and they now blatantly resort to premeditatedly planting supposedly tough questions like this one in their rate hike skip Q&As this week in order to look and try and pose impartial and tough. Even though they will eventually have to resort to monetizing our growing debt and deficit piles by blowing out their balance sheet many multiples as this decade progresses into the next. Here's Jerome Powell at this week's rate hike skip, yet threaten more Q&A.
Let's go to Edward.
Thank you for taking the question, Mr. Chairman. Edward Lawrence with Fox Business. So I want to go back to comments you made about in the past about unsustainable fiscal path. The CBO projects the federal deficit to be $2.8 trillion in 10 years. The CBO also says that federal debt will be $52 trillion by 2033. At what point do you talk more firmly with lawmakers about fiscal responsibility? Because I'm assuming monetary policy cannot handle alone the inflation or keep that inflation in check with the higher level of spending.
I don't do that. That's really not my job. We hope and expect that other policymakers will respect our independence on monetary policy, and we don't see ourselves as the judges of appropriate fiscal policy. I will say, and many of my predecessors have said, that we are on an unsustainable fiscal path, and that needs to be addressed over time. But I think trying to get into that with lawmakers would be kind of inappropriate, given our independence and our need to stick to our knitting.
Is there any conversation then about the Federal Reserve financing some of that debt that we're seeing coming down the pike?
No, under no circumstances.
Nothing that Jerome Powell or Janet Yellen said this week changes the damning data's past, nor that gold's coming mania phase seems still inevitable. These simple charts cut through their propaganda. All their fiat currencies devalue versus bullion over time, and that is by design. The current fiat US dollar has already lost negative 98% versus gold bullion since the start of 1970. It's a similar story for the various and myriad fiat currencies that have flooded the world the last 5 decades plus. Just wait until we go even more digital and they begin monetizing their coming record IOUs further. Take the long view and get your prudent bullion positions secured soon. Hello, this is James Anderson on behalf of SD Bullion. Smash the like button if you enjoy these bullion market updates. And be sure to visit sdbullion.com/sweepstakes to enter our free 500-ounce Silver Eagle coin giveaway.
Want to win 500 Silver Eagle coins just like this guy?
Yeah, this is Kevin.
Hi, Kevin. This is Dr. Tyler Wall, CEO of SD Bullion. I'm calling to let you know that you won the SD Bullion giveaway of a monster box of 2022 Silver Eagles.
Unbelievable. That is awesome.
So click the link below for your chance to win.
Good luck to all of you out there who enter our free 500-ounce American Silver Eagle coin giveaway sweepstakes. Silver and gold spot prices had choppy sideways price action through various Fed hike skips this week and job report interventions. The bullion buying public has basically disappeared, and premiums have been falling across the bullion industry as inventories build for the next big buying wave impetus. The spot silver price closed above $24 an ounce in both bid and ask, while the spot gold price closed just above $1,960 an ounce ask. The spot gold-silver ratio closed flat at 81. Since last year, 2022, government central banks have been buying and declaring official gold reserve additions at historic record pace and size. Yet one major gold bullion buying central bank has been forced to sell off some of its official gold bullion reserves of late, as its local fiat currency goes into an exponential price inflationary climb. Bloomberg reported this week, Turkey's central bank has been selling off its gold reserves to meet local demand, which has surged as citizens seek to protect themselves against inflation or currency depreciation before elections next month. The central bank started to meet demand for the precious metal after Turkey suspended gold imports in February 2023, according to a person with direct knowledge of the matter. The Monetary Authority has also begun to accept fiat liras in transactions for gold sales, aiming to ease pressure on the local currency in the spot market, the person said. The central bank declined to comment. The central bank's gold reserves have been tumbling over the past 7 weeks, according to official data, which show a decline of negative 9% during that period. Following twin earthquakes on February 6, 2023, Turkey issued a regulation forcing a pause in gold purchases from abroad that fall into the category of, quote, cash against goods. At the time, gold imports were among the biggest drags on Turkey's external finances. Turkey was the biggest buyer of gold among central banks last year, according to the World Gold Council data. The nation's gold holdings were at record level before the quakes. During the last major commodity bull of the 2000s, there was a time in 2008 when the fiat lira almost reached parity with the then fiat US dollar. Well, not anymore, obviously. Next month, I still do plan on reporting to you all from Istanbul, Turkey, where I last visited that city between Europe and Asia. Rate of exchange at the time when I visited was August 2021. The fiat lira to US dollar exchange was just over 8-1. That report will be later next month, and I'll bring it to you firsthand from what I witnessed there, so stay tuned. Now, to close this week's SD Bullion market update, as I personally prepare to make a platinum bullion buy of my own, the World Platinum Investment Council updated their latest forecast showing deficits for the platinum world through this year, all the way out into 2027. While they do project that South Africa, the world's dominant major miner of platinum, will grow in their supply output in the years that come, much of the coming output is going to be swallowed up by automotive demand. Mirroring the current physical available silver bullion market that's dwindling, above ground platinum bullion inventories are also shrinking and are projected to continue falling in the years to come. Now, where has most of the world's remaining platinum bullion inventory upped and vanished to? China. Since the COVID 2020 shutdown, China has basically squeezed platinum bullion, and they're most likely going to use a lot of it to build out their hydrogen fuel capacity. Now, all that platinum bullion that came flooding into the NYMEX during the COVID 2020 era, it basically went sucking out the back door headed east to China. China knows a cheap precious metal sale when they see one, and they need that precious commodity to support their growing middle class's car-buying future. Now, while platinum might not be money per se, it still can prove to be a precious store of value. Thus far during this 21st century, platinum has had long runs of time outperforming gold, and perhaps not this decade, but maybe next, we'll see something akin to what we saw in the 2000s. While my expectation is gold is going to continue priced at a premium over platinum for many years to come, I can't ignore the great fundamentals for platinum, nor the fact that platinum is basically nearly half the price of gold at the moment. That's a rarity in the last, 100 years. So this is all for this week's SD Bullion Market Update. As always, to you out there, take great care of yourselves and those you love. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and share it with those you love. Subscribe to our channel and hit that alert button so you know when we publish new bullion market updates.